Hello. This is going to be the second episode of this YouTube series. Today, we're going to be talking about a manga called Claymore. There's also an anime series out about it, but as many of you may know, most of the, how should I say, the otakus, the weeaboos, or whatever you might call the people who are just obsessed with Japanese media. The manga is always more accurate. It's the source material. It's very similar to what people say. Well, books that are, or rather movies that are made about certain books that are written, it's better to read the book. We've all heard this. Anyhow, we're going to take a look at this manga. We're going to cover manga as we're going to cover manga on this channel sometimes. We're mostly going to, in regard to media, look at things from media from Japan for the most part. That seems to be extremely, and has been extremely popular, but especially popular now. So many people are so very interested in anime, manga, Japanese video games, Final Fantasy, Dark Souls. Capcom makes Resident Evil, Monster Hunter. Basically, the best, it's sort of a very strongly held opinion that the best video games and best, you know, manga is sort of a comic. But people get angry if you call it. They're basically like comics. We know this, and there are many individuals who do not even read comic books from the United States, or I haven't heard very much about European comic books, or even superheroes, which is weird. But for the most part, a great many people solely look at Japanese stuff. They don't like, you know, any of the Marvel or any of their superheroes. The Japanese manga and anime and video games are often far more graphic in regards to violence, bloodshed. The Western comic books and video games also have symbolism, and we may look at that, some of those, at some point. But for now, my focus is on Japanese media. I don't see often enough people who are asking questions about the symbolism in Japanese media, which is basically what this whole series is about. Symbolism. If you didn't know, if you didn't watch the first episode, it's about symbolism. There's another fellow who is a YouTuber. His name is A Call for Anti-Illuminati. He has a very good channel. That man has covered and looked at all types of movies, video games, all manner of all sorts of things, really. Hundreds of videos pointing out symbolism, pointing out some things which people pass over. Very good channel. And I will link his channel in the comment section because, well, when I started my YouTube channel, for some reason, um, I can't really put links in the description yet. So I will put his link to his YouTube channel in the comment section. Anyhow, this is Claymore. If you haven't heard about Claymore, it's a lesser known manga, there's also an anime about it. In regard to this manga Claymore, we are going to talk about not so much the symbolism, but the implications of its story. Of course, I'm sure you've heard the little adage, so to speak. What is the moral, or rather the question, what is the moral of the story, so to speak? We're going to try to investigate the ethics of Claymore. We're going to try to investigate the philosophy of Claymore. We're going to try to explore why this was written. What is the writer trying to portray to us? What is the writer trying to teach us? As I said in the earlier video, this is not necessarily the way most people view their media. Most people view media, they see it, they watch a television show, or they watch a cartoon or an anime or what have you, and many of them stop at, this looks cool, I really like it. They don't ask any further questions, even in their mind, which is why I happen to choose to basically call this whole series Meditations on Media. Meditation basically means deep thought. And so that's what we're doing. We're deeply thinking about our media. We're going to try to discern the meaning of it. That's what we're going to do. That is not often done. So when I started this blog, or rather, when I started blogging on Medium, this was the very first blog I had written. And I had read this manga, how long ago was it? Maybe it was a few months ago now, I suppose. But, oh goodness, I was not particularly expecting how bloody and lurid it would be. It was. I know a great many people like that. They really do sort of gravitate towards what we would call dark art, so to speak. I don't really have a problem with dark art for the most part. I would say, well, I do have a problem in that you basically learn very little from it. But even so, a person can give credit to good writing, and a person can sort of benefit more from something that's been well written. I can't say that about these manga. And most comic books as well don't have good writing. Now, if you don't know very much about the origin of comic books and what preceded them, what preceded comic books were pulp fiction magazines. It used to be people would buy a pulp fiction magazine, that's what they called genre at that time, pulp fiction. You would buy a magazine full of short stories, very well written, from very good writers. Were they good people? You can sort of gain an understanding by the stories that they write that most of them were not particularly how would you say, you probably wouldn't want to meet them in person. You could say the same about many of these comic book authors. And manga artists, especially the manga artists. As you can see on this cover, of a young woman with a sword, and basically these are the women like her with their little swords and their little dresses, or what have you, are the hero the heroes of of this of this manga. They're doing all of the fighting. Very weird. As far as I know, the Japanese man who wrote this manga is for, like, I believe from what I've read, he's in his 40s, or if not 50s. And, well, somewhat interesting. He's not, I don't know. He's not currently married, but you draw an anime with, um, a manga with half naked girls fighting monsters. Okay, that makes plenty of sense. Sure, that makes plenty of sense. But that is basically what this is. But we're going to look at this in more detail. We're not just going to end it there. So let's begin. Well, as we analyze the manga cover page, we can clearly see her right eye is uncovered. This is her right eye that's uncovered. She is specifically covering her left eye. That's what she's doing. Her right eye is illuminated. Her left eye is covered by her sword. These swords that they have apparently are special swords that have a mark that represents who they are, so to speak. Each one of these claymores has a different mark. So when she's covering her left eye, and we see this plenty of times, I do believe we talked about right and left in the Demon Souls videos, but I'm not particularly sure that we talked about, oh, we did talk about eyes, but this is information we're going to be reviewing quite a lot. If she's covering her, and it has to do with our understanding of magic, what particular magicians know, and how they teach the magical mysteries. They have certain symbols or hand signs or particular things that they do that signify something. She's covering her left eye with her sword that's specifically covered. And whether this is symbolism or not, if this is symbolism, I can tell you exactly what it means. If this is intentional, she is covering that left eye to symbolize the eye of Ra, so to speak. And in other words, this is associated with the sun, with masculinity. She's basically giving us a message that she is sort of masculine, strong character. The right is associated with goodness, that is to say, virtue as well. And it's very interesting. So, hence, it would seem her personality and role in this manga is appropriate for the symbolism presented here, for she is presented as a strong knightly character. So that is very interesting. Of course, I have the quotation I used previously in the Demon Souls video about right and left. This, you can get this book for free that I'm reading it from. I will say the name after I read a few of these quotes from this quotation. So, the two sides form a duality in which usually but not always the right is viewed more favorably. Tracings of the hand and Ice Age cave temples, along with other evidence, suggest that humans have always been predominantly predominantly right-handed. It is probably for this reason that the right side has been treated predominantly as better and luckier than the left. It may be of some significance that the left arm traditionally remained passive, holding the warrior's shield, while the right carried and thrust the weapon. The place of honor at an Occidental table is at the right side. Occidental means Western. Basically, um, European culture. So the right side of the table is, um, the, the good side, what have you. Uh, we read about this before. At the Last Judgment, the just take their place on the right side, and the damned on the left, and the risen Christ sits at the right hand of God, the Father Almighty. In the depictions of the crucifixion, the repentant thief is on Christ's right, the unrepentant on his left. In the Kabbalah, the duality of God's hands, which in this tradition can have no negative aspect, is expressed as follows. The hand of blessing, symbolizes mercy, and the left, the hand of the king, justice. In many cultures, the right side is thought of as masculine, and the left is feminine. This division implies a negative view of women, but it may also be related to an association of the right hand with everyday activities and the left with magic. African magicians, however, carried out sacred actions with the right hand, and they prepared poisons with the left. And we have the Chinese theory of yin and yang as perfect complements, which, if you research the theory of yin and yang, which we will in the second part of the Demon Souls video, to an extent, we'll just show the symbol and we'll talk about its relation to chaos. We're not done with the Demon Souls blogs. I'm going to release more of those. In regard to Elden Ring is going to take a long time. That game is huge. It's full of so much symbolism. Um, it it will take, who knows how long it's going to take. Part 2 may be out soon though. So basically, Chinese theory of yin yang or taiji is basically their theory of it is they have no clear preference, as it says here in the quotation. And basically, in European magic, if you're of the right hand path, you're practicing white magic. If you're at the left hand path, you're practicing black magic. If you decide to mix both forms of magic, they call that the non-dualistic gray magic path. And these definitions, although they're simple, they're not well known. And we can find this in, the same book that we used before in the Demon Souls video, Dictionary of Symbolism, translation copyright 1992 by Hans Biedermann. We can find this book for free on the internet. Other people may say, you're a pirate. Well, it's their websites that are dedicated to sharing free PDFs. We're sharing what we have, and people are making digital copies of it, and they're preserving it. And you can get that book. You can get all of these books. You can get this one. This is a very good one. Anyhow, now we have Rebecca Warfield, University English instructor, and RYT 500 yoga teacher from Yoga and the Power of the Lunar Side. Anyhow, She's saying, these yoga teachers, that Hindu, Indian mystics have their own systems of magic. Basically, many of them, they teach the same thing. So, not to mention the fact that right and left universally, worldwide, for whatever reason, the right side is considered good, the left side is considered bad. You may not understand this. Even our Bibles talk about this. It says in the Bible, the goats are on the left side of the Father, the sheep on the right side of the Father. And many people say, well, you know, many people, they're telling me I'm a sheep. And it's good to be, if you're a Christian, that has to do, you know, it's it's not bad to be a sheep. But the Bible also says, it says, you're as a sheep among wolves. You're sheep among wolves. Um, but you have to be as innocent as a dove, but wise as a serpent. So we should learn these things. And even if you're not Christian, you will want to learn these things. If you want to understand your media better and just some basic symbolism. So they say the sun side is the right side of the body. The the left side is the lunar or moon side. So they consider the qualities of the right to be masculine: logic, aggression, action. Feminine side is intuition, creation, potential, creativity, nurture. Feminine, you'll read all about these things if you read books on symbolism. Basically, the symbolism worldwide is, for the most part, the same. So we will encounter that quite a lot. Now we have the Eye of Ra and the Eye of Horus. For some, they consider any covered eye to be the Eye of Horus, but that's not necessarily true. Not every covered eye represents the Eye of Horus, because as we read from journeytoegypt.com, which is a website that has to do with Egyptology, that talks somewhat about Egyptian culture, and they say, according to later traditions, the right eye represented the sun, and so is called the Eye of Ra, while the left represented the moon, and was known as the Eye of Horus, although it was also associated with Thoth. However, in many cases, it is not clear whether it is the right or left eye which is referred to. Very interesting. So we have a trident-like mark prominently featured upon her sword, and throughout the anime and manga, you will see her little trident on her sword. Okay, we see this little trident on her sword sometimes. I only know that the symbolism is that it's like a fishing spear with three broadened prongs. Is the symbol or attribute of Poseidon, the sea god. In Latin, it's Neptune. It's on the flag of Barbados. um, Occasionally on some coats of arms. Shiva, the Hindu god of destruction. Agni, the Indian fire god, rides on a ram. He has a trident, and though this particular quotation doesn't mention it, if we are familiar of, which you may be, pictures of Satan, the devil, also carries a trident, which many people, myself included, sort of see that god of destruction, like of Hinduism, Shiva, to basically be some type of of to have some type of association with Lucifer or even be Lucifer, that is to say, Satan. Um, there are a few pictures from the manga that I've put here in the blog, but this in particular is probably the first time these boys and the people in the town or village or whatever see her, and they're just amazed. Oh, well, look, it's a Claymore. She's scary. I've never seen one before. So that's a silver-eyed witch? She's just like the rumors say. They look frail, but they carry huge swords. I've heard that people started calling them claymores after their swords. We all know a claymore is a type of European sword, but they don't look like, I don't know. I mean, I've seen some of, what's a good picture for sword? I guess that could technically be wielded by a person of, of a good deal of strength. However, these people, these claymores, who are all women, and there's some strange, weird, stupid reason as to why they're all women. They're basically some type of experimental, genetically modified person. And so they give them these swords to fight these demon monster things called Yoma. So this is the first instance of her being referred to as a silver-eyed witch. And she doesn't look like a typical witch. She simply doesn't. She's not wearing a little, I mean, she doesn't really even look like a knight, frankly. But she has a short skirt. She barely has any armor on. It seems entirely insufficient for fighting of any sort. Is this an intentional design choice for the purpose of sex appeal? Her bare skin is exposed and can easily be cut into and lacks any type of defense. Furthermore, she has no helm. They never wear any type of headgear whatsoever. And some people say, "Oh, why are you talking about this? It's a manga. I mean, it's not supposed to be realistic." I'm just thinking, I, why people? I can't take it seriously if it's. But anyhow, people like different things. I understand that. But here in this blog, we're basically asking questions why. Why is this woman? I mean, who would wear a skirt this short to fight a battle to the death? You have nothing on your arms. You have nothing on your. You're exposed. You're exposed. You're completely exposed. You're completely exposed. Your head is just going to get cut. It's going to get cut right off. Your arms are. They have no armor whatsoever. Oh goodness. I mean, how easy would it be? Just the arm, once it gets cut off, you can't even wield your sword anymore. There's a reason why in the old days in Europe, when they used to fight with swords and armor, and the knights and other such people, there's a reason why warriors of every age, except for nowadays, of course, used to have metal armor. You're fighting with big, heavy steel weaponry. It's not. I don't know who would do this, but once again, as I said, some very eccentric older man created this manga. Uh, why? I. Anyhow, let's continue. She's not wearing anything. She's a close range fighter. We have to keep this in mind. She's a close range fighter. She's not. They call her a witch. And we're going to talk more about why they treat the claymores in the way they do. We're going to talk more about why they treat these claymores the way they do. But what you should know is that these are not, if you've never read the manga before, if you've never watched the anime, She's not some little woman who's a witch or a wizard who's just standing far away casting spells. No, she's taking this big, heavy sword and she's going at her enemies. She's right up close to them, trying to basically hack them apart. She's not standing far away. She doesn't have a bow, which is interesting. They don't adopt any other type of form of weaponry. It seems as though the only strategy they seem to be interested in using is basically taking a big sword and just going close and attacking them. They're not taking spears or pikes or arrows or crossbows and bombs. Nothing. It's just, here you are. Why even have pauldrons? What is the purpose of the pauldrons? The rest, your arms don't even have armor, but you have shoulder pauldrons to protect yourself. It makes very little sense. It really does not. You can see what I'm seeing. And I have some, this blog does not have that many images here, but we'll see, this is it. This is all they wear. They don't wear anything else. Now you may ask, well, where did they get the inspiration for the swords? And I would say in all likelihood, this author, just like Miyazaki, who creates the FromSoft games, Hidetaka Miyazaki, in all likelihood, he was inspired by Berserk. That's my guess. Do I know if he was inspired by Berserk? No, I don't. But Berserk, if you don't know, is a manga. There's also an anime series about it. There's an old anime series and a new anime series. It's quite bloody. It's quite violent. There's a man, his name is Guts. That's his name, yes, I'm not joking. He carries a big, heavy sword. So many people in Japan are inspired by Berserk. Berserk. If you check up the meaning of Berserk, it basically means go into a frenzy. There used to be, the inspiration for the usage of that term is it used to be particular Viking or Germanic warriors called berserkers. Some people say that they became possessed by certain spirits. They were able to turn into werewolves and werebears, so to speak. All types of animals. They would take their shirts off. They would bite their shields. These are just the stories. These are what people have written about them. The history of berserkers. The series Berserk is very interesting. The man carries a big sword. And so basically, ever since then, you've seen things like Final Fantasy VII. Cloud Strife, he carries a big sword. And that's another series. Final Fantasy VII, that's a whole other blog series in and of itself because there's so much symbolism and so many implications behind that story. But there are many, whether it be manga, whether it be anime, video games, that really love the idea of carrying a big sword. They love the idea of this is a big, heavy, great sword. It's just amazing. It really is interesting because you will see anime, manga, not so much Western comic books. You'll find this as a Japanese thing. Comic books and cartoons here in the West, they don't often do it. It's as some people say, the cool stuff comes from Japan, and people love the hero with a big sword for some reason. But there's no logical reason this woman would want to fight close. Now, as we read, basically I'll just tell you, because I don't even think I wrote it in this blog, because they're genetically modified with basically demon blood, demon blood basically is what they've mixed. They're half human, half demon. Okay? So when you cut her arm off, let's say, she'll grow another one back. When you cut her leg off, she'll grow another one back. It takes time, apparently. They can regenerate limbs. The problem is that when you cut their head off in this little manga series, they're dead. That's the only weak point they have. And you would think, well, it makes plenty of sense if they would be smart enough to wear headgear, a helmet, a knight's helm, something, put something on your arms. You see, it doesn't benefit them at all to get their arms and legs cut off because sometimes they can't heal their arms and legs. It's a really weird, complex system. Let me just say that. But why you would fight in this, even in the fictional universe, it doesn't make sense. It doesn't even make sense in the fictional universe. It really doesn't. You cannot explain why she's in a short little mini skirt trying to fight these demons and monsters or whatever. It doesn't make sense. So, very unreasonable design for a sword fighter. So, as a witch, which is very interesting, she isn't typical at all, though, due to her design, the cover art, and the role, the fact that she's covering that left eye and presenting us her sun, her sun eye, her eye of Ra, so to speak. She's presenting that type of symbolism. I would say that she's basically a student of the right-hand path philosophically, but practically, she basically is a black witch. And I talk about her being a witch because, and we don't hear much about it, they call her a witch. They present her as a witch in the manga. And she's obviously not one. But if we had to call her a witch, I would say, well, she dresses in all white and she works for a particular organization and she's obedient to her superiors. Apparently she does her job and she does it right. But basically she does nothing but hurt people and she's very cruel. She's especially to a particular boy who she meets. He's a young boy, and she treats him horribly in the beginning of the manga. I've watched the anime and read the manga rather. The anime is somewhat, I would say, faithful to the manga in the sense that if you're asking me how well is it presented in the anime, do they really adhere to story material? I would say they sort of do fairly well. But anyhow, let's get back to reading. So she's duty bound to serve humans. Apparently these Claymores who work for a particular organization that sort of creates them through some type of genetic experiment. They can't kill humans. They're not human themselves. They're basically half demon, half human. They call it Yoma. So she is half Yoma, which in this manga is extremely similar to demonic possession. It quite literally is. You never see a Yoma, or rather, what it is, so to speak. You see them, but there's what you would call a parasite or some type of demonic monster in them. And we'll read more about that soon. The design of Yoma is basically like demons. In the eyes of the Claymores, when they use their Yoma power, they become like demons. So it may be said that her battle prowess is driven by Yoma power, which is basically demon power. The word Yoma means demon. Okay? It's Japanese. It means demon. So It's spiritually evil. I mean, it's nothing particularly benevolent about it. It's quite evil. Therefore, if all of this is taken into account, once again, just as in Demon Souls, we see a non-duality, non-dualism being promoted and being represented in the story. In other words, well, Claire, she's good, but she's also an evil person. So let's see what the boy, this is the boy she met that she did not treat so very well in the beginning of the manga. So I think, I'm not, oh no, this is the boy. But this is his friend, and he's telling this boy who starts to travel with Claire, who is the person we've been talking about, the Claymore. They've taken the flesh and blood of Yoma into their own bodies. By making themselves half human and half monster, they're strong enough to fight the creatures. Basically, they're talking about fighting Yoma, they're fighting demons. Now, if you're watching this video, you've probably already read this manga. If you're watching this video because you want to understand symbolism, you have to know I'm going to spoil just about everything. The organization they work for, they create the monsters in the first place. And they also create the Claymores. It's a big experiment that they do. Basically, that's the whole deal with the story. But anyhow, he's surprised. Oh, I don't believe it, really. What's more, after a lot of testing, they found that only females adapt successfully. They say every male who has tried has died a horrible death. Well, of course. Of course. And I just tell you what I think right now. I'll just be frank and I'll tell you my opinion. I think the only reason they're using females, the only reason they're using women is because and I've seen it, not just in Japanese manga, anime, cartoons, sci-fi, basically, and maybe there's some symbolic reason as well, but it seems to me, and this is my opinion, they're using only females to do this work as claymores because the person who wrote this is sort of perverted. That's just my understanding. And we'll talk more about how perverted this manga is. It has to do with all manner of things, cannibalism. If you didn't know, eating flesh and drinking blood has a long history in magical practices and many religions in general. It is through taking in Yoma, which is the Japanese word for demon, that humans can be transformed into claymores. And yet, how this is done is not necessarily explained that well. It seems as though it is done through surgery, and yet there seems to be a very cannibalistic undertone underlying that process. So right here, in the tradition of European magic, blood was considered a special liquid, saturated with the individual aura of the donor. This is why pacts with the devil had to be signed in or sealed with blood. Once again, coming from the Dictionary of Symbolism, translation copyright 1992 by Hans Biedermann. So we have here a scene. This is young Claire before she cut her hair off. She was the apprentice, so to speak, or of this woman, Teresa. She wants to become a Claymore too. This is when she was a young girl. And she had the opportunity to do it. So Teresa is killed by another Claymore who basically becomes an awakened one. This is what they call Claymores who basically give into their demon side and go absolutely mad and just want to eat humans and eat people. They want to kill and eat people. That's basically what they do. But they're still mixed with human. And we're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about the implications of these awakened ones. But first, basically, she comes up to her, she gets her head, because the woman that she was fighting, another Claymore, who's basically one of who's basically the major villain of this whole manga, this woman, the name of which I don't really remember. If you read the manga, if you've seen the anime, you know who I'm talking about. But it's not, her name really isn't that important right now. Basically, she takes the head of this woman who took her in, Teresa. She says, I want you to put Teresa's flesh and blood inside me. So sure, it's not necessarily that she's eating Teresa, but the way they state it, it's a very cannibalistic undertone. It's a very interesting way to present it to us. So basically, this man in the black hat right here, he's from the organization, and he's going to send her to the organization. They're going to do experiments on her. They're going to put Teresa's blood and flesh inside of her. They're going to do a surgery. They're going to cut her open. They're going to basically genetically engineer her into a little child warrior, a little child soldier. I've seen in many manga, they talk about child soldiers, how they make these children into killing machines. They make them into, it's very interesting to anyone watching this video. Maybe to you, you're thinking, oh, that's so weird. But I tell you, if you watch anime, if you read manga, you'll see a lot of child soldiers. And basically, there are child soldiers in this manga. There are child soldiers in this anime. And there's a lot of other weird things I could say. It's just like the awakened one I was just talking about, the woman who turns into a monster. She goes around to villages and kills people and eats them because she's a monster, basically. She's half human, half monster. She can turn into a monster. She can turn into a human or whatever. But I mean, there's a lot of cannibalism in this manga. There's, just like I said, the woman who there's one person in this manga. Apparently, the only people she won't eat and kill, and that's what it is. They're not just killing them. When they fight monsters, the monsters, if they will basically eat you, and the monsters look human. You may not understand what I'm saying, but if you read the manga, if you look at the anime, you will see it. They're like half human, half monster, and they're big, and they're like giants. It's in a sense this manga, and if you watch the anime, it's a lot like Attack on Titan. I don't know if you've heard about Attack on Titan. That's a whole nother thing to talk about in regard to the implications of giant people eating people. Now we know, me and my fellow Christians, we have something in our Bible that talks about giants. And there's a book of Jude in the New Testament. And he talks about the book of Enoch. Now, if you read in Genesis, they talk about the giants, but they talk about the book of Enoch. Jude literally quotes the whole section of the book of Enoch. In the book of Enoch, they say there were giants who were eating people. Massive giants that were thousands of feet tall. They had offspring that were not as tall as them. The Lord killed most of them. Or he killed all of them, basically. But how these giants came to be in the Bible, angels, which are spirits. It says in the Bible, angels are ministering spirits. They saw women, and the angels decided, we're going to take for ourselves wives because we like how the women look. And they decided to have children with these women. These giants were massive. They were huge. They were walking around the earth. They were just eating. They ate everything, people, off the crops, off the livestock. When they couldn't find any more food, they started eating people. That's literally what the book of Enoch says. Now, me and my fellow Christians who have not read the book of Enoch, please read the Book of Enoch. Get a good translation, because not all of the translations are as good. I prefer a translation by Matthew Black. Um, that's a very good translation. And there's another one that I can't mention offhand because I can't remember it. But regardless of which translation you get, they all talk about giants. Basically, who these people are fighting with their little swords, or they fight people who are smaller. They call them, they're sort of demon possessed people. But basically, when you look at the end of this manga, they're fighting giants. They're fighting giants. And cannibalism, this manga is full of cannibalism and bloodshed. It's quite something. It's I can't explain it in words. If I were to mention everything that goes on in this manga, I wouldn't even be able to make this YouTube video. They would take it off. It's that bloody and nasty. Okay? So I'm just being I'm trying to be as descriptive as I can be, given the circumstances. So by consumption of the Yoma, which are very much like traditional demons and are depicted as such, the Claymores become a hybrid of human and Yoma. That is to say, demon. Basically, human and demon. They are somewhat like werebeasts, like werewolves, or a type of a werebear. I've heard of werebears too. And of course, I mean, there's stories about all types of people turning into beasts. Okay, whether you believe them or not, you're probably familiar with them if you played Skyrim or the Elder Scrolls or any of these games where you can become a werewolf or a vampire or a monster or something like that. So we're familiar with this. As we can see on the screen, this is sort of the main villain here. She becomes a lot scarier later on in the anime, but this is what happens to their eyes. You can see the other woman fighting with her. She's a Claymore. They're both Claymores. Claymores basically, if they're not able to control themselves, become monsters. And of course, how are you able to control yourself? It's a demon inside you. Basically, literally, it's going to control you. It's not smart to have a demon inside you. But this manga seems to not, it seems to promote becoming half human, half demon. Isn't that surprising? But this is what happens to their eyes. You may think, well, you would never see eyes like this in real life. I have. And I'm going to have a whole video and a whole blog post on my Medium account if you are more interested in that. Wayward Ascetic. I'm going to have the link in the comments. And I'm going to do a blog about eyes like these. You probably don't know what I'm talking about, but if you see it, you'll know what I'm talking about. I've seen people's strange eyes. We're going to talk about eyes more, but not in this video. But this is when they become, when they use their demon powers, their yoki is what it's called. Yoki in Japanese means demon power. You're going to see their eyes become like a cat or like a serpent, basically. Slit pupils. You're going to see the slit pupils. So in this manga, power in general of any consequence comes from the Yoma. Metaphysically, Yoma are violent, vicious, regard humans as prey, have a particular appetite for viscera, basically organs. That's what viscera is. They want to eat guts, organs, nasty stuff. I'm not joking. I wish I was. They are not shown to hunger for animals. They just want humans. They don't want to eat animals. They just literally all they care about is eating people. The stuff they talk about, they eat anyone. And they look. It's not like Attack on Titan where they don't necessarily look as human. Here they look, well, I guess they all look like monsters, but they look more human to me in this one. And if you watch the manga, I mean, read the manga, watch the anime, you will know what I'm saying. But anyhow, they hunger for people. They hunger for humans, men and women and children. They don't care. They eat you. It's disgusting. Um, that's to say, spiritual aspects of the Yoma underlined are demonic physical manifestations. The rest of mankind as a whole in this manga are considered to be universally weak and even bigoted against their Yoma demon-empowered saviors. Well, obviously, you would not like these people to be in your town or village. I mean, they're half demon. Of course, people don't like them. Regular men and women have no power whatsoever to fight or protect themselves um, from the Yoma. Power comes from the Yoma. Basically, the only ones who are powerful in this whole manga are the demons. I mean, there's no benevolent, altruistic, undefiled counterbalance. Only demons can destroy demons. Yoma, whatever you call them. Therefore, powers presented in this manga is volatile. Every time they're using power, every time they're exerting power, it's always emotional. It's always, oh, you know, that's the hero, but they're really evil, and there's no good and evil, that type of thing. It's non-dualistic. It's mean. It's malicious. It's there's nothing good ethically in this manga. Everything has some degree of evil mixed into it. There's no moment where you see the people, the Claymores, or and many other people presented as good or evil. It's very interesting. So there's not one warrior of in this manga that doesn't not one warrior that's good that can fight effectively except Claymores. They're the only ones who can fight these gigantic monsters, these awakened ones, and these Yoma. There's only one person who's the little boy. Eventually, he grows up, and the Claymores don't age. They always look like young girls, which is stupid. And we're going to talk a little more about that whole idea of them not aging because they've done a little. They've basically put pedophilia in this manga. That's what they've done. They've included that, and if you've read manga before, if you read Japanese manga and looked at Japanese anime, if you call them cartoons, so many anime aficionados are going to say, "Oh, it's not cartoons, it's anime." If you call manga comic books, we understand. We understand. Anyhow, we're going to talk about they're not aging. I'm going to show you a picture. Nothing graphic, but you can guess the age when you see it. It's a little girl, basically. Anyhow, the Claymores, they're considered monsters. They call themselves monsters even. They say, well, we're monsters. Claymores are monsters. And everyone around them says, Claymores are monsters. These little slim girls going around with big swords are monsters. Okay? And, so we see the definition for monsters here in the dictionary. A threatening force, something monstrous, especially a person of unnatural, extreme ugliness, deformity, or wickedness, or cruelty. We also have definition 5, one that's highly successful. Now, why did I include definition 5? Because the only ones who succeed in this manga, you have to be a monster. You have to be half demon. Everyone else is weak. Everyone else is pushed around. But if you're half demon, you're not. You have power. You can't just be a good person in the world of this anime, of this manga. Because if you're a good person in Claymore, in the manga Claymore, you die. That's how it works in this fictional world. So in order to live, in order to survive, you have to be evil. basically. So they're threatening, they're deformed. You may not see the deformity, but when they take their clothes off, which is another sort of weird situation, they basically have such a nasty scar from the surgeries that they have that they are deformed. They don't look deformed, but they are, I didn't include one of those images where they take their clothes off, but they don't look so good once their clothes are off. Okay, they're highly successful. The humans are in awe of their power. You know, demon power is equivalent to power in general in this manga. It's the only power. The only power is demon power in Claymore. That's what they're showing us. Therefore, the author of this story is sending a very clear message that the real power that's worth having is vicious and malignant, like a yoma's, like a demon's. That is to say, like a devil's. And even if you possess humanity, you need demonhood. You need sort of these aspects of a beast in your nature to be powerful. So my present presumption is that he has no belief in good and evil. That's just my opinion. That is to say, if this work is a reflection of his own morality, of his own beliefs, of his own ethical beliefs, and if it's a reflection of his philosophy, it would indicate that. Because when you see what is in this, and I'll be frank, early on in the manga, they're fighting with swords. Later on, you see things like this. They just basically become monsters. They just basically become demons. Okay? And their flesh, their bodies change. These aren't even the worst pictures. There's so many different types of transformations. They're becoming something like an evil being. But what they try to do with these individuals is quite something. So I just tell you, there is a type of mental conditioning that is being employed by this manga that is inclining us, the readers, to have an affinity for demons. We are presented with the human aspects, and we're also presented with the monstrous and the monstrous demonic aspects. And in regard to the so-called awakened beings, we see a complete mixture of human and yoma. That is to say, demon characteristics to such a degree that both physical and metaphysical differences are entirely merged. They have the bodies of men and women, and yet they can also transform into demonic creatures, into monsters. The minds of men and women, and yet they also have the minds of man-eating monsters. This dual nature comprises the full characters of these individuals to such an extent that we, the readers, must accept both. As the story progresses, it becomes very clear that we, the readers, are being endeared to protagonists that share the same bloodthirsty, cannibalistic, demonic, monstrous, and cruel nature. And if we are endeared to any of them, we've accepted the aforementioned nature as something that is peradventure. It's sensible, acceptable, proper, righteous even. Maybe a reader will not approve of the man-eating and bloodthirsting propensities of the Yoma, Claymores, and awakened ones. Yet they still have a preference for their human-like personalities, because they still speak and think like humans, but they're also monsters. You're going to develop ambivalence. In all likelihood, you're going to develop cognitive dissonance. And if you don't know what cognitive dissonance is, here we have in Merriam-Webster's dictionary. That is psychological conflict resulting from incongruous beliefs and attitudes held simultaneously. In other words, you have incompatible beliefs. So we have Random House Webster's dictionary. Anxiety from simultaneously holding contradictory or incompatible attitudes, beliefs, or the like, as when one likes a person but disapproves of one of his or her habits. As the favorite characters of the reader use ever more of their monstrous forms and powers, the reader's your favorable inclination towards them is tested. If one's favor is sustained even after the realization that these characters are actively and progressively using Yoma powers and expressing their demonic forms tangibly, in other words, you're going to see them more often. You may start the beginning of the manga. Hey, they're just normal people. They're carrying big swords. Why are they calling them witches? Why are they treating them so mean? Okay, keep reading the manga. They're literally going to become monsters. They're going to eat people. There's It's so weird. Okay, so they ease you into it. Then the reader has essentially accepted and become endeared. You become close. You become affectionate to the characters, to the same type of creatures that were devouring villagers and townspeople in the beginning of the manga. So it will surprise you. So we have this is when she's coming here to get paid, to not necessarily to get paid, but he decided to contact the organization, the Claymore organization, for the job. He gets one. They have no emotion. They don't even act emotional. Though later on in the series they drop this act of, oh, Claymores don't have emotion. They only no. It's so stupid when they do that. In At least to me, in my opinion, it seems so dumb when they try to make, oh, the character has no emotions. And these characters, these Claymores, have no emotions, but they obviously show emotion throughout the whole manga and later on in the manga. So I guess the writer lost his focus because he couldn't really create a good story with a character that has no emotion. But she basically says, if I get killed, there'll be no reason to pay. They don't care if they live or die, but they do have fear. There's a lot of things. I would just say the writing is bad. But this man is pretty afraid. Okay? They're just weird people to be around. She should be wearing more armor. As we can see, she's barely wearing anything. How you fighting this is just... I've already talked about that. I'd stop. Okay. So, the townspeople are afraid of these people. They don't like these Claymores. They're half demon. They're weird. They're suspicious of them, and they have a right to be, because the organization they come from is making the demons. They're sending those monsters out into the public. So there's a reason he doesn't particularly like this woman, and why other people don't particularly like these people. Okay. In the early chapters of the manga, we are mentally and emotionally conditioned through the discrimination that the townspeople show towards them. Just like I said, it prepares us and inclines us to the ever greater use of yoki, the demon power. That's what it's translated of. And awakening is when they accept that demon power and they become awakened ones. So in regard to the awakened ones, the question is, what did they awaken to? What did they actually awaken to? And the answer is they awakened to their demon nature. They were half human, half demon. They decided to go all the way. They decided to become full demon. And that's what they did. They became full demon. They became a real, they became basically a big demon. Okay, let me just put it that way. Okay, now we know that Yoma means demon in Japanese. So what's the definition of demon? Let's just review it so that we can understand a bit more, so that we have some degree of understanding of what a demon is. Why is this so significant that they're half human, half demon, that they're becoming fully demon? So we go here in Merriam-Webster's dictionary, and we see Middle English demon, spelled as it is, late Latin Daemon, evil spirit from Latin divinity, spirit from Greek daimon, um, evil spirit, a source or agent of evil, harm or distress, ruin. Um, Another thing to say about daimon, and the divinity spirit from Greek daimon, it used to be in Greece, in Rome. People use that word. They used to believe demons or spirits were gods. That's a whole nother thing that we can talk about more. So 3, daimon, supernatural being, Greek mythology, intermediate between gods and men. We have Random House Webster's dictionary. Demon, evil spirit, fiend, evil passion or influence. Um, Wicked or cruel person, one with great energy, a demon for work. Okay, Oxford Learner's Dictionary. Demon, evil spirit. So a demon or yama is an evil spirit. Next question is, what's a spirit? Just in case we don't know, a spirit, here in the Webster's, um, Middle English, Anglo-French, Latin, um, from Latin spiritus, literally breath, spirare, to blow, breathe. Okay, animating vital principle held to give life to physical organisms, a supernatural being or essence, capitalized Holy Spirit, soul. Um, Often malevolent being that is bodiless, and but can become visible. Ghost, okay. Um, Temper, disposition, or mind, outlook, especially vigorous or animated. Okay, animating principle of life, human essence, incorporeal part of humans, mind, soul, consciousness, supernatural, incorporeal being, one having a particular character, evil spirits, attitude or principle that pervades thoughts. There is one to action, etc. The spirit of perform. Okay, so basically, a spirit is incorporeal, something you can't see that's in you that gives you life, or an evil spirit that basically is a demon. So here we go. So Yoma. So we know demons in general are metaphysical and non-material, but in this manga and the anime, Yoma are physical. They're tangible. They're physical parasites, and they result in transformations of the body. They become bigger. They become stronger. They can do things they couldn't do when they were human. Basically, like a mutation. But the word they use is demon, Yoma. They're literally telling you through the Japanese wording that it is a demon. But what we see is something physical, which doesn't make much sense considering the fact that a demon is not physical. Okay? So as we read, you know, we learn that these demons come from some type of flesh. But it may be said that the physical transformations reflect the evil of the spirits, because there's so many different transformations. And as you saw in at least one picture, you got to see some of the transformations. There's many more. Um, it's very, very interesting. Spiritual things are of the mind and are non-physical. It brings to mind the question: what is the purpose of the art and story of the manga? What is being conveyed to us, the readers? Um, because it's basically a physical demon. Very interesting. Why must the spirit needed to slay the demons also be a demon, also be demonic? So the whole manga revolves around controlling evil spirits, this evil flesh, so to speak. These parasites, whatever you want to call them, to gain power, to fight, other demons. So we would ask the question, rather I would ask the question, why would the Claymores not be evil? They're evil too, I would say. So Yoma or Japanese, they're supernatural beings. In this manga, they're beings created from the flesh of dragons, from dragonkin. So they call these beings that they happen to get flesh from dragonkin, the organization. Somehow they got these dragonkin, and they take their blood and flesh, and they use them to genetically modify the these young girls. They did it to the boys too. The problem with the boys is they became these big monsters and they couldn't stop them. Apparently, that's what they claim. But that's a whole nother issue. The truth is, in the manga, they're still creating them. They're still creating they're still using the men, or they still have a purpose to the organization. And it's a weird organization, somewhat, like the secret societies in the real world, you know. But they don't explain where these dragon can come from. And yet, the mentalities of Yoma, they're demons. Okay, they're demons, basically. Um, so the spirits have been reified by the artist. Something supernatural he's made physical. So if you have knowledge of the supernatural, the preternatural, so to speak, and religious knowledge, you already know that's a demon. You already know that they're half demon. You already know that there's something very evil about what you're seeing. They don't present it as evil because they don't present good and evil in this manga. If you were to question the morality presented here, basically, good and evil are not presented. I just put it that way. Evil spirits are often cast out in exorcism. If you're a Christian, it has often been the understanding that you don't want evil spirits in you. Even some other religions talk about evil spirits and how they do exorcisms to cast them out. We have a verse here in Matthew 8:16. When the even was come, they brought unto him many that were possessed with devils, and he cast out the spirits with his word, and healed all that were sick. For Christians, at least Christians, we don't particularly want demons or evil spirits in us. In this manga, they promote demon possession. So demon possession is glamorized. It's presented as something that edifies the individual. In other words, they present demon possession as something that's good for you. You should have demon possession because then you will be powerful. You will have power in this world. That's what they present it as. All of the powerful people are possessed with demons. It's just the truth. This is very interesting that they've created a manga like this. But anyhow, let's see. So they say you can control it. Basically, that's the message in the manga. If you use demon power, control it, and you know, somehow it will make you a better, stronger, more powerful person. So the beauty of the women and girls is especially put in the focus. The female Claymores and awakened ones are at many times presented fully nude. They are sexualized. They're extremely sexualized. At no time are they ever in gear that even might be considered to be defensible. There are also obvious pedophilic relationships and situations in this manga, often involving very young girls. So we can see here, this is she used to be a Claymore. She became an awakened one. She can become a bloodthirsty, man-eating monster in a split second. And so can this man. This apparently is her boyfriend. Apparently she's like 100 or so years old, or she's however many years old. Okay, they say, oh, Claymores don't age or something weird like that. I think they do age. There's some type of weird justification they have for having a young girl who looks like she's just like 7, 8, or if not 9 or 10 or something, with an older man, and he's another monster. He's one of the men who can become a monster. He's an awakened one too. He can become a monster. They've both accepted their demon nature, okay? But that is a little girl. That's a little girl. Our eyes see that's a little girl. There's a lot of other nasty things. Here's another Claymore. She's torturing her. She's caught her, and it's just pretty nasty. But I don't care what you think about it. Oh, well, the Japanese writer told us that that's just she's older than she appears, and she just likes being in this form, or she never ages or something. No, that's a little girl, and that's a grown man, and she should not be with her. I, but as I said, what they promote in many of these manga and many of these anime, we should speak about them. We who read these manga, who view these anime or whatever media, we should talk about this more. I guess it's just acceptable. I guess it's just acceptable to have a little girl with a grown man. Read the manga and you will learn that she's with him. That's her monster boyfriend. She's a monster too. Don't get me wrong. She can become a man-eating monster, eating whole villages and stuff like that. You may think, oh, what is he talking about? Let me show you something really quickly. You see this little girl? You see this little girl right here, don't you? She becomes, one second, I'm going up here. She becomes this. Yes, that little girl you saw, she becomes this monster right here. And she can grow into basically a giant. That's the little girl. You see, and it's basically, in order to have these forms, they basically have to eat humans, drink blood. It's terrible. It's disgusting. That's all this. That's mostly what this manga is about. Is cannibalism. I could have shown you even more horrible images. I didn't show you any of the images of anyone getting eaten or anything like that, but you see it. That's her. That's the little girl. Okay, and there's other images that are more suggestive than this. This doesn't really have nudity. You can't see any sexual parts, so to speak, any nipples or what have you. So I mean, you're safe right now. I mean, I don't have any pictures that show any of the more graphic stuff, but it is very graphic in this manga. Just be prepared. If you read this, be prepared. It's graphic. It's very graphic. And be prepared for pedo stuff. You're gonna see it. You're gonna see it. I mean, you won't see it. I mean, any sexual scenes, but it's just the implications. There's implications here. There's implications that we had that this has, and we know that this is what this promotes, and what the people who make art like this are proponents of. We know. Okay, so let's talk about their obvious fixation upon rank. If you didn't know, every Claymore has a number. Every Claymore has a number, and they're obsessed with rank. The Claymores who are ranked by numbers have intense arguments regarding who has a higher number, and always, without fail, are incredibly surprised if a lower number obtains an advantage in battle against them. This all having been said, those who aren't Yama are literally treated as worthless. They have no defense against any Yama. Claymores are awakened ones. Townspeople, villagers, and humans in general are the lowest if we rank them in terms of power, which is interesting considering that we who are reading this manga are humans. We're humans. We're humans reading this manga, and they're telling us, hey, humans are weak. Humans can't do much. You need demon power in order to, you need to be half human, half demon, or fully demon if you want power. So what's the message that this sends to us, the readers? Perhaps they are implying that we ourselves should have regard for demon power. They're saying, literal translation of yoki. It was the Japanese word they used throughout the whole manga. Yoki is demon power, and they want us to get some for ourselves. That's what it seems like. As we learned earlier, Yoma in the real historical sense, they're demons. That's what the term Yoma means. They're not physical parasites. You didn't get this out of some type of genetic experiment. It's spiritual. Spiritually, they're telling us that this is what we have to be. It's very strange. Though they are similar to the latter, to these physical parasites, in that they can possess humans, they differ because they are supernatural in nature. Quite interesting. So this concludes my first blog upon the Claymore manga. And I may release more if I think of anything. It was quite hard to read this. It was quite hard to read this particular. I'm just doing a video. I put the rabbit and close everything up.
Yeah.
Okay.
Put the window down.
I can do it all. Just let me do this.
Yeah, okay, go ahead on.
Yeah. Anyhow, this was very hard to read. It was very, for lack of a better word, it was very nasty. But I decided there was some symbolism I had to cover, I had to look at. There were some implications that this story had that I really wanted to see. So that's, sometimes I will read manga and I will do a blog on it. I only read manga now for ideas for videos. Basically. That's what I'm doing. I don't read manga for enjoyment or even comic books. They're very boring to me. The writing is very bad. I just be honest, there was only one person I knew who could write good comic books, and that man was Jack Schick. I don't know if you've heard of him. He used to make his little Bible tracts, his little Bible comic books. I used to like those. There's no real significance to it. They're just glorifying bloodshed, cannibalism, nasty, weird sexual stuff that I can't understand. And if I do understand it, all I can say is that the people who make this type of content, this type of media, it's very disgusting. I know there's people who think about cannibalism, who think about eating people, and but to have a whole manga about it, literally little girls in skimpy armor turning into monsters. That's basically what this is about. It's quite horrible. I think this one blog might tell you everything about the implications involved here. It may jest. If this one page can this one page can basically, you can get the understanding what this is by this one page. This one page is basically what, if you thought this was bad, it gets worse, and it's basically the whole manga. I want you to put Teresa's flesh and blood inside of me. And we have here, in the tradition of European magic, blood was considered a special liquid saturated with your aura. Your aura means your air, so of your presence, your individual, unique type of being, your spirit, so to speak. And this is why pacts with the devil had to be signed in blood. But my goodness, it's and what is interesting, if you read the manga, by taking in this woman's flesh and blood, what was interesting is that she becomes like her. She becomes like her, and there's special things about her having her blood inside of her body. She has a certain type of transformation in the end of the whole manga, where she basically becomes some type of angel looking exactly like her, or something very weird like that. Okay? And they had the nerve to have an angel. They know what we Christians think of angels, but you see, they take the image of an angel and they use the image and they desecrate it. It's quite disgusting, but that is indeed, this is carnal. This is flesh. It's about cannibalism. There's not much I can say about it other than that. You see with your own eyes. If you want to see and if you want to read this, well, sure, go ahead, because you'll see just how bloody and evil this is. And some people may say, well, it's evil is just a matter of subjective opinion. But, I mean, that's what's... I imagine the author of this manga believes evil is just basically an arbitrary concept, an illusion. I don't think this is right. I don't think this is good, to literally have another person's flesh and blood in you. No, how about bury the woman? How about this? How about instead of taking her head and having some type of nasty mixture or something put into your body, how about you just have her buried? How about you just bury her head with the rest of her body and just not do this? I mean, how about let's not do this? Let's not do this. Let's not. I know she was killed by some crazy monster, another Claymore who became a demon, but how about let's let reason prevail and not do this? Let's put that head down and walk away. Put the head down, young lady, and walk away. Live a normal life. Don't do this. But hey, that's what this anime is about. It's about cannibalism. It's about genetic engineering. It's about child soldiers. It's about some other nasty stuff. Okay? So that concludes it. That concludes what I'm going to say about this. Because some things you can't put into words. Some things you cannot. I can't tell you how nasty and graphic and lurid this manga is. If you watch the anime, it's the same way. It's pretty intense. And I would just say, watch and read at your own risk. Okay? Now, some people probably agree with the messages in this manga, in this anime, but personally, I would say it's just as I always say: when you watch stuff, please ask questions about it. That's what I'm doing. That's what these videos are about. The next video may or may not be Demon Souls, Meditations on Media Part 2. It may be a whole different type of video having to do with Jenny Weaver. I don't know if you've heard about Jenny Weaver, but she is a former Wiccan. She's become quite influential in the church. And when I say church, I'm not talking about any particular church. I'm using the old-fashioned terminology, the body of Christ. Just Christians in general. She's popular among Christians in general. She has a website the woman is making a ridiculous amount of money on. She's not even a pastor. She's making a ridiculous amount of money. I don't particularly think that female pastors are biblical anyway, but if she had a church, I could somewhat understand. That's a whole nother issue I'm going to talk about. Jenny Weaver is selling big. She's making massive profits. We're going to talk about that at some point. And really, I just tell you, everything you see on the Medium blog here is going to be made into a video. Now, am I going to just read the video? No, not necessarily. It's just like, as you can see, I'm adding my own commentary. This is more or less, if I make the videos, you get to know my thoughts on the blogs about what I've written, about what I've read, about what I've watched, the media that I've seen, or the people I'm talking about or writing about. Rather, you'll get to see that type of stuff. But if you want just reading, just straight through, you go to one of, where is it? I don't know, but there's a way right here. Listen, you go to the listen button, and they have so many. They have an AI voice that will read the whole blog for you. All you have to do is press this AI voice, and it will read for you. Just press that, and you will have a selection of voices that you can listen to, and it will read the whole blog for you. So that way, you won't have to wait until I make a video about it. But I don't, as you can see, I didn't really read the whole thing anyhow. But when you go to the website, you can read it and you can listen to it. Medium is a very good place for blogs. Very good place to write blogs, put blogs up. For me, I just wanted to make videos that were just based on the blogs. I'm not good at editing or anything like that, but this was very enjoyable. And it has been ever since I've been making these videos. Another thing that I'd like to say, if I didn't already say it, the Demon Souls video was not so very loud. And so what I'm going to do, or rather what I already did, there's another Demon Souls video, part 1, right? I believe it says better audio on the title. Okay? So go to that one because it's louder. You can hear it better. I can't really do much about the microphone I have right now. But what I do after these videos, I upload the MP4 and I make them louder with some type of software. So far, it seems to have worked well, but you can be the judge. If you want to comment about that, please put a comment below. Please tell me about it. I'm trying to improve. Right now, my resources are limited. I'm using a snowball microphone, and I don't know how good these are, but for my purposes, I don't really, it will work for now. I may get something a lot better at some point, but right now, I'm just going to use a few different programs and just make the video louder so you can hear me a bit better. All right, then. So this was very interesting. May you be blessed in the name of Jesus Christ. And, well, I will be working on Demon Souls Part 2. And, well, you'll see that at some point. So, thank you for watching.